What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have 3 big snowstorms impacting much of the country in the next week or so. And that's how I'm starting off this video right here, folks. As you see on the satellite, we already have the startings of one system starting to really organize and develop. There's a low-pressure system near Texas and Louisiana, and there's a low that is currently weakening near Iowa and Missouri. We're going to have to pay attention to this. There are some areas in the Midwest that could see up to 2 to 3 inches of snow from this. But the main focus is in the next couple of days or so as this starts to bring some impacts to the deep south, some severe weather, and then potentially a lot of ice to a lot of the Appalachian areas in North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. And then it brings a lot of snow for much of New England, much of New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the rest of the Mid-Atlantic. So we have a lot to talk about. However, the 12Z model runs just dropped in the College of DuPage website. And we have a lot more information after this one because we have 2 new storms expected to impact the Midwest, and the snow totals are absolutely shocking. But before we get into that, we need to talk about the first storm that's coming up and impacting much of the Mid-Atlantic. So here's the situation we have right here. This is the National Weather Service. Winter storm warnings have gone into effect from New York all the way to Virginia. Now we have some winter storm warnings in effect for much of Massachusetts and Connecticut. So we're going to have to continue to keep an eye on it. We're going to go ahead and start with the newest ones. They are just outside of Boston near Worcester right here. So let's go ahead and show you what we're looking at. Right here, heavy snow expected, total snow accumulations of 6 to 12 inches, winds gusting as high as 35 miles per hour. Those are near blizzard conditions right there, ladies and gentlemen. And this is issued for northern Connecticut, western central Massachusetts, as well as northeastern Massachusetts from 4 p.m. Saturday to 1 a.m. Monday. Impacts. Travel could be very difficult. While this snowstorm is going on, and especially with the winds this thing's expected to bring, I would advise against travel. Just don't do it and stay at home if you absolutely can. Additional details, snow will be starting between roughly 5 and 9 Saturday evening. The storm will then become very heavy and the snow will fall at 1 to 2 inches per hour at times on Saturday night, and then there'll be a bit of a lull, and then there will be a second resurgence and all that stuff overall in parts of Massachusetts and Connecticut. So that's what we have going on over there. Next one I want to take a look at is the one for New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania right here, particularly around the Scranton area since they are now under a winter storm warning. Here's the situation. 6 to 9 inches expected from 11 a.m. Saturday to 7 p.m. Sunday. Additional details, snowfall rates may exceed 1 inch per hour, so we're going to have to pay attention to that as more information continues to come in. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the stuff that's going to be going on near the D.C. area, over here in central Pennsylvania, in parts of Maryland, and into Virginia, as well as West Virginia right here. Here's the winter storm warning. We're looking at a lot of interesting stuff happening. First of all, we're looking at pretty much in some areas 1 to 3 inches of snow with ice accumulation around 1/4 of an inch. Some areas 3 to 5 with ice accumulations of 2/10 of an inch. So all that stuff really going on all over the place, and we have winter weather advisories for much of the D.C. and Baltimore area, so we're going to have to pay attention to all this as time continues to go on. But we also have winter storm warnings as far south as North Carolina, where there is the potential for some ice to happen around, especially the Roanoke area. So here's what we have. Heavy mixed precipitation expected. Total snow and sleet accumulation of up to 1 inch and ice accumulations up to 2/10 of an inch. That's why the winter storm warning has been issued, because of the ice and not the snow. So we have a lot of stuff to really kind of go over and give you a better clue at what we're potentially looking at. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the models that we have right here. We're going to start with the timing of the Mid-Atlantic storm and kind of give totals for those before we hop to the Midwest and give you a closer look of what we're looking at. So here's the GEM GDPS latest run. Right here, the low pressure starts to organize and develop and really bring a lot of ice, especially to the Appalachian areas of North Carolina, into Virginia, West Virginia, and then it brings a lot of snow to Pennsylvania, to Maryland, and then even parts of Washington, D.C., just outside of that, could see a bunch of ice happen, and then pretty much through much of the rest of the Mid-Atlantic, we're going to be seeing a lot of snow, a lot of ice, and the rain-snow line stays just south of Connecticut, Rhode Island. It does impact parts of New York City, but Boston is definitely going to get slammed by this massive amount of snowfall, and then it starts to kind of move off by Monday, January 8th. What kind of snow accumulation are we looking at over there in parts of the Mid-Atlantic? Well, the snowfall accumulations as of right now, we're still having some areas of over a foot of snow, with Boston proper getting around 7 inches. However, the line has shifted a little bit more to the west. As of late, it's kind of either stayed stationary or shifted a little bit further. And from here on out, the big stuff that we're potentially worried about at this point, especially for the Baltimore and the D.C. area, is the ice accumulation. And we'll go ahead and show you the GFS freezing rain accumulation and get a better look at what we're looking at. Here is the Northeast right here. Okay, we can't really see that. We'll go back to the Mid-Atlantic. Right here, the ice accumulations, especially through much of the Appalachian Mountains, can potentially crack a half an inch of ice, which, for those of you who don't know about ice, and you're probably saying, hey, half an inch of ice isn't that much. What are you guys talking about this? Half an inch is a lot of ice. You lose all your friction on the roads. That can down power lines and cause a bunch of chaos and cause a bunch of problems all over the place. So we're looking at some potential ice going on, and then we have total snow accumulations. In areas of Montgomery County, we could see potentially up to 2 to 3 inches of snow. However, the main line has kind of moved further to the west, and the main impacts will probably be around the Scranton area as we continue to look at this. And then even into Massachusetts, a lot of areas could see up to 15 inches of snow in New England. Boston could see up to 9 inches of snow according to the GFS. And if we go ahead and show you the European as well, as of right here, the European's pretty interesting as well. Parts of DC could get some snow, but it's mainly going to be in the Scranton area, mainly going to be Boston over here, where we're seeing up to a foot of snow in some of these areas. So we're going to have to pay attention to that, as this does look like a very significant snowstorm. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on, because the big stories that we have for you today is we have a lot of stuff happening in the Midwest in the next few days. So here's the situation that we have going on. We're going to go ahead and move to that section over there. We're going to go ahead and kind of give you a better look at what we're looking at. We're showing you the GEM GDPS with the precipitation type. Unfortunately, we can't really get that much in, so we're going to go ahead and use the northern Illinois sector. So this is a little close, and I don't cover your area. I do apologize for that, but this is just for simplicity's sake and to get a better idea of what we're looking at. So here's what we have going on. So on the 9th of January, starting around midnight, much of the Midwest starts getting very impacted by a bunch of snow, very impacted by a lot of potentially some ice, although some rain is not out of the question for those in southern Illinois and parts of Indianapolis right there. And then by the morning of the 10th, the snowstorm does move out of the Chicago area and impacts further to the east over here. So here's what we have going on. Parts of Detroit could definitely see some snow, and even into much of Ohio over here before it starts to move further into the east and impact parts of Pennsylvania, New York, and much of the Mid-Atlantic over there. So here's what we have looking at for the first part right here. The first part is going to be a bit tricky because all these models are a bit in disagreement right now with the first one, but the second storm that does impact the parts of the Midwest in the next few days, rather later towards the next week on the January 12th, does bring some pretty significant snowfall, and we'll get to the and we'll go ahead and cover that right now as a matter of fact. So here's what we have going on. We have a potential Alberta Clipper on the 11th by the GEM GDPS, but then on the 12th, we see a massive snowstorm organize and develop in parts of the plains. We're actually going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit to give you a better look at it. It starts to organize and develop in Kansas and Oklahoma, and then it moves as fast as it brings heavy snow. It brings a lot of ice to a lot of areas and pretty much blankets much of the Midwest, including Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Ohio, much of Michigan, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, all those areas right there. And this one is expected to be a very strong storm as it moves through. In fact, the pressure on this gets really low on this. In fact, the pressure on this, from what I've looked at, even from what I've looked at, gets down to the 980s for a low. Which, for those of you who don't know what that means, a 980s low for a mid-latitude cyclone is incredibly strong, and it is a massive snowmaker if you give it the ample moisture. And according to this, you get the ample moisture with this. So that's what we're looking at for the second storm. Now, what does that mean for accumulations? Well, we're going to go ahead and show you, and a lot of these totals are very, very shocking right here. Here's what we have with the GMGDPS. In parts of southern Illinois, from both of these snowstorms, we are looking at potentially up to 3 feet of snow, with areas in St. Louis getting almost 2 feet of snow. Parts of the Chicago area still getting around 6-7 inches of snow, but in areas around Indianapolis could see up to 20 inches, and northwest Indiana could see up to a foot of snow. So that's what we have going on. And the first storm is mainly going to be the snowmaker, according to this, in much of the Chicago area right here. But the second storm is what really makes or breaks this right here. In fact, in parts of Indianapolis, we could see up to 15 to 18 inches of snow just from the second storm alone. So this is pretty surprising right here. And if this was just one model calling for this, I'd be kind of disregarding it at this current point. But all 3 of these models are now advocating for big snow for the Midwest. We're going to go ahead and show you next the GFS right here. The GFS has been pretty interesting to say at the very least. The first storm impacts much of St. Louis and Chicago, although it does bring quite a bit of snow for much of rural Illinois and parts of northwest Indiana. The big stuff comes the next time on Friday the 12th. So here's what we have going on. The GFS really ramps up with the snow totals right here for much of the Midwest. And we're going to go ahead and actually zoom out to give you a better look at what we're looking at right here. The GFS for much of Missouri, much of Illinois, and much of Kansas is calling for potentially up to 3 feet of snow in eastern Missouri, but around 30-plus inches for a lot of these areas right here. And in Chicago, we're looking at 16 inches of snow. St. Louis, we're looking at over 20 inches of snow, although the vast majority of that comes from the second snowstorm. About 18 inches of it does. And then in northwest Indiana, we're looking at up to 15 inches of snow. Indianapolis, we are looking at potentially up to a foot of snow from this with the GFS. So this is a very interesting situation. This is 2 out of the 3 models I wanted to go ahead and show you today. The next model we're going to show you is pretty jaw-dropping because this is the European. The European is typically more conservative than both of these models. Look at what it's bringing right here. It is bringing a lot of snow to the Midwest, and it's even bringing up to a foot of snow as far east as Ohio and Pennsylvania. That, I'm not exaggerating, folks. You're looking at the numbers right here. In a lot of these areas in Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, we're looking at potentially up to 2 feet of snow. And about in areas like Chicago, the bulk of it comes from the first storm, but the second storm brings a lot more to Indianapolis, to much of Ohio, to much of Illinois, and much of Missouri. So what I would do is continue to look at the models, pay attention to your weather forecasts, and we will keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. We'll close the video out right here. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal of this channel is, as always, to get more people engaged with weather. But with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.